Hey, Tom here. In this video, me and all three of the other run testers are going to be talking about the Hoka Oni Carbon X2 running shoe. Let's take a look. Okay, before we start, let's take a quick look at those stats. The shoe's going to cost £160 or $180. It weighs in for me at 234 grams, that's 8.3 ounces, in a size 8, and there's a 5mm drop. The Carbon X2 is the new version of the Carbon X, which came out well over a year ago. It's a shoe with a carbon plate, and it's designed for races and kind of speedier training. There's an aggressive meta rocker designed to help with running efficiency and that turnover and smooth transition as you're running. There's a soft ProFly midsole, which is designed for a cushioned landing but also a responsive toe off. There's a lightweight and breathable engineered mesh upper. There's an updated tongue design, which is got this kind of notched feature to it, and it's a lot flatter than what you found in the previous model. Probably the most noticeable thing is this extended heel section, which is a design that's being added to a lot of Hoka shoes over the last few months. And there's an extended kind of heel tab that just sits above the collar here to help get it on and off more easily. It's also a removable sock liner and reinforced elements around the laces. Not sure what those are for. The Carbon X2 and the original Carbon X have been in the news quite a bit over the past year or so because they've been used for record attempts by Jim Walmsley, an ultra runner who actually broke the world record for the 50-mile distance in the original Carbon X and attempted to break the record for the 100k distance, but didn't do it. I think he was shy by about 12 seconds in that attempt. So that gives you a bit of an idea of where Hoka are placing this shoe. Those kind of efficiency gains over longer distances.
Fit for me was interesting. In the Carbon X original, I actually had to go half a size up. I did run in my UK 8.5, which is my normal size initially with these, and they were a little bit tight, it was a little bit snug, so I half a sized up and it was much better. The opposite, I think, is true of the Carbon X2. In this one, I deliberately went for a size 9, so half a size up, and it actually feels a little bit too big. There was a little bit too much in the toe box. I did still get sort of quite a good lockdown across the sort of midfoot, and there wasn't too much heel slippage, but it just felt a little bit too long in the foot. So actually with this one, my instinct actually would be to go for true to size. So I think, for me, that would be a true to size 8.5.
So fit for me was all good. It's, as you can see, it's quite a narrow shoe. I've got quite a narrow foot, but I think what I found is once I got this on, actually you get quite a lot of room up front in the toe box. And I think, the mesh upper also offers quite a lot of space and it's quite accommodating. So I wouldn't have gone size down. I'm an 8, and I wouldn't have gone a size down. I wouldn't have gone a size up. I think I quite like the narrow fit, and like I say, up front, you've got a lot of kind of space there for your kind of toes and feet to kind of spread out. The only other thing, this kind of elevated heel, I was a little bit concerned about initially, but actually wasn't, didn't cause any problems for me. And generally around the kind of size of foot, this upper is great. And yeah, so fit for me, all good, no real complaints.
Fit for me was true to size, although it is quite a narrow shoe. It's a very locked down fit to it. The fact that it is narrow isn't such a big problem because the material is almost sock-like. So my feet do pretty much press out on the sides of here, but I've never had an issue whilst wearing it. It gives a really nice lockdown fit. It's very comfortable, and I've definitely had no issues at all with rubs or anything like that as I'm wearing them.
So I liked the original Carbon X kind of fine. I found it was a reliable, kind of steady shoe. I used it for kind of long runs, some steady stuff. I never found it an out-and-out quick shoe. I didn't really, put it in a bracket with the Vaporfly as the other carbon plate shoe at the time. But, it was a nice enough shoe. It was really good and stable. The X2, I think, has made some improvements, and some things aren't as good as on the original X. It's got a slightly softer feel, which I like. It's maybe slightly springier. It's got more pace in it, I found. I've done some fast stuff in it, and I found it easier to do in this than I used to in the Carbon X. However, it's really not very nice at slow paces, even steady paces, and I'm just not sure about the swallow design here. Like, I am a heel striker. I'm assuming this is aimed at people like me, but don't really find it. I think it has ruined the rind at slow paces, even for me. And then I don't know if it's helping much at fast paces, but I don't really appreciate it being there, I think, basically. So I've done about just shy of 70k in the shoe, including some good long hard workouts. Did a long hills workout. I've done a 16k run, alternating the pace between 3:45 and 3:25 per k. So kind of like a 56-minute 10 miler, something like that. And then 8 1k reps at 3:25 per k pace, and then 3:10 per k pace, alternating. And I found when I was in that 16k run in particular, that was a real sweet spot for this shoe, where it rolled through nicely. I felt like I was putting enough pace and force into the shoe to get some decent response from that carbon plate, which I didn't really feel at all at kind of slower paces. And it was comfortable, stable. Yeah, that was a really good pace for it to work at. I found when I increased to 3:10 per k pace on those k reps, it was a bit too much for the shoe. That's about my 5k pace. The shoe's not really built for that, I don't think. It started to feel a bit awkward again. It wasn't slow, still hit the pace, but I don't feel like I was getting a lot from it. Whereas, yeah, around 3:25 to 3:45, so I guess my target marathon pace is around 3:33 per k, so it's kind of either side of that. I found it was smooth, it rolled through nicely. On those k reps at 3:25 a k pace, again, it felt quite good. Just not outstanding though, I will say that. Like, normally if I hit that 16k workout, it was a big workout for me, really pleased with how it went, but I didn't normally that twists my view of a shoe that I start to love it because the workout went well, but I just didn't get that with this shoe. I just kind of finished it and went, oh yeah, I quite enjoyed that shoe. Really pleased with the workout, but I don't feel like I'm getting a huge amount from the shoe necessarily. So yeah, all in all, my running experience has been like that. It's been okay. Like, apart from at easy paces where I haven't really liked the feel of the shoe, it's done its job. I just think it's a slightly unremarkable shoe at a time when there are loads of really good shoes, including from Hoka itself. And so yeah, the Carbon X2 just didn't really stand out for me that much on the run.
So running performance for me, I've done over 50k in these now, and that's been made up of some kind of shorter 5k stuff, some kind of easy tempo runs, a couple of interval sessions, and a couple of longer runs as well. So in those shorter runs, definitely felt the speed in these a little bit like the Rocket X. I think you can run quite deceptively quick in these. Definitely get that sense, this meta rocker and this midsole kind of pushes you up on your toes, and I enjoyed the kind of sensation of running in these. In the intervals, were fine as well. I did feel a little bit of the kind of clumpiness of the shoe in intervals in between. Around the back, you've got a little bit more kind of going on here. Generally, it didn't cause issues, but it's just something that I noticed. On the longer runs, I think that's where I kind of appreciated the design of the shoe and what it's kind of really about. Like I said, this upper is very spacious. You've got a lot of room. You've got that kind of very natural running feel. It feels very consistent, very quick. And I don't think this is a shoe you can kind of run slow in. Really, it's all about really maintaining your good speed and making sure that you're comfortable throughout that distance and that run. So the longer runs as well, I kind of really felt I benefited from this shoe. The short stuff was fine and I could run quick in them, but I just think I probably enjoyed them a little bit more when I wanted to kind of run a bit quicker and go out on those kind of longer distances.
I have done 42.5 miles in the Hoka Carbon X2. That is a mixture of sort of steady paces. I put in some very sort of slow, plodgy miles, and I've also done some sort of higher tempo intervals in them to see how they perform when you really pick up the pace as well. Now, my initial instincts with these are that, when I first put them on, I just felt like there was a lot of shoe going on. For some reason, I feel like there was a lot more than the original Carbon X, which I was a big fan of this shoe. And my initial reaction to this is that I'm not as impressed. It's still a good shoe. I still found it, it was sort of fairly nice to run in. What's really interesting, I just feel like there's more on my foot. Now, it's lighter, but it still, to me, feels like there's more kind of clunkiness going on here. Partly with this kind of, this goat kind of heel tail here, which goes on, which is supposed to kind of help spread the kind of vibrations if you do sort of hit with a medial or lateral side. I don't really notice that. I just feel like there's something sticking out the back of my shoe that I don't need, which I didn't really have on this original shoe. I actually felt like compared to the other carbon shoes that I tested at the time when the Carbon X came out, that the Carbon X was a little bit more minimal than something, and I don't know, I just felt it lighter, and I felt like I could run longer miles in it. I wanted to. With this one, I haven't really found that to be the case. There are some improvements. The tongue is definitely improved. It's much better. It's sort of wider. It sort of sits sort of more comfortably across the top of the foot and holds the foot in place with that gusseted tongue is much better. Okay, you've got this kind of big sort of heel kickback here. Makes the shoes easy to get on. Doesn't rub your Achilles. But I honestly didn't find any rubbing with the original Carbon X, so I didn't really have a problem with that. Underfoot, I do feel like they're less firm. They're a little softer, a little bit more squidgy, which is, I talk about this a lot in the reviews when I do them, but that's not really my thing. And I think that's one of my big problems actually here. I found that the firm ride with these was much more to my liking. I much prefer that when I'm doing longer miles. I don't know, I just felt like this one was a bit sloppier. You didn't quite feel as much pop that you got with the Carbon X. So yeah, for me, I don't think I'm not saying this is a bad shoe. I think it's a perfectly good shoe. It's weird. I really preferred the original, and actually, if I had to choose between putting one or the other on, I'm still going to pick these over these. I just feel like there's something going on here. There's like too much shoe, and it's not really made any improvements for me.
I've ran about 65k in the Carbon X2 so far, and that's varied between slower 10k runs all the way up to a 24k run that I was putting quite a bit of effort into maintaining a fairly good pace at. And I think it's just an alright shoe. Nothing particularly stands out for me about this shoe. Whenever I wear it for whether it's a slower run or a faster run, I very rarely think this is doing a great job. But then equally, I also don't think I'm not enjoying running in this shoe. It's almost like a subtle training partner that doesn't really deliver anything amazing. It just does the job. However, I really did enjoy the original Carbon X because it just offered something a little bit different. It almost feels like a normal non-carbon plate running shoe with just a very subtle kind of firmness that comes from the plate, which made running just feel a little bit more responsive and a little bit quicker. Neither of them feel like what you'd get from something like the Vaporfly. There's not a noticeable bounce or that kind of springiness that you get from a lot of those kind of carbon plate super shoes. But what I did like about that Carbon X was that it wasn't about that. It was just really it had a carbon plate, but it showed that old carbon plate shoes weren't designed to do the same thing. And that subtle carbon plate was quite nice. However, with the Carbon X2, I don't really get that as such. I don't feel like that carbon plate is really doing a great deal. It doesn't even feel subtle. I've got shoes that aren't carbon plate shoes that do feel more responsive than this shoe. I've got carbon plate shoes that non-carbon plate shoes that feel softer than this. So it's a bit of a strange shoe because I'm not really sure where it's what it's designed to do, where its focus is. And really, it's just quite an alright general shoe to wear. You wouldn't want to buy it if you were looking for a carbon plate shoe and you wanted to go really fast. Equally, you wouldn't buy it as a training shoe. Maybe its focus is tempo running to an extent. When I've been doing slow runs in this, I don't really get a great deal at all from it. Slow runs, it doesn't seem to have any benefit at all. But in the half marathon I did, where I was trying to hold the pace quite well, it's quite nice for maintaining a pace, and it does feel like you don't think about it, and it does feel like there's some efficiency to it which you're not noticing as you're running. And as is the case with Jim Walmsley, who attempted the ultra distance records, it probably suggests that's what it's for. A subtle energy return that isn't bouncing like the Vaporfly, but is giving you very subtle gains as you're running, and it's not really that noticeable. And if that's the case, it probably does a good job.
So I actually think Hoka's on a bit of a roll recently. They've released some really great shoes. I really like the Rocket X. I've really loved the Mach 4. I've just started using that so far. I've put kind of 2 runs in it this weekend and really liked it. I don't think the Carbon X2 is a great shoe. I think the changes made to the original have improved the shoe in some ways, but made it less good in other ways. I think it's a faster shoe now, and I think there's a bit more. And I enjoy the ride maybe slightly more, that little bit extra softness. But it's still a bit awkward. It's not very nice at slow paces. The swallowtail is, I think, I'm on the fence. I don't think it's great, despite being a heel striker. So all in all, it's not a huge upgrade, and it's maybe slightly less versatile than the original one. But also, the biggest problem here that Hoka have with this shoe is that when the Hoka Carbon X was released, it was like the only other carbon plate shoe. I mean, there were others, but the only other serious competitor to the Vaporfly, which was never available at the time. Whereas now, the marketplace is flooded with these shoes, and there's a lot of really good competition out there, and I think there's a few of them that are just simply better than this shoe. And that includes the Hoka Rocket X, which is cheaper, lighter, has a nicer ride, a softer feel. I think it's still comfortable enough to use for marathon efforts. So I would be getting the Rocket X if you're staying within Hoka's lineup. I actually prefer the ride of the Mach 4 as well so far. And then elsewhere, at £160, you can get the Saucony Endorphin Speed. I always talk about the Saucony Endorphin Speed, but you can get that for £155. That's just a better all-round shoe. It's faster, more comfortable, just a great shoe. And you're really not far off the price of bona fide super shoes like the Adios Pro at £170, if you can ever find it in stock. The Saucony Endorphin Pro at £190. So I just think it's a different marketplace now, and the X2's updates haven't made it like a definitively better shoe. I think there are some improvements here, but there are also some things that aren't as good as even on the original. So yeah, I think it's probably a shoe that I wouldn't be buying. If you're a big fan of Hoka, I'd get the Rocket X. And if you're not, and if you're looking elsewhere, then Saucony Endorphin Speed would be my kind of pick for this as a more versatile all-round shoe that's quicker but nicer at easy paces. So yeah, all in all, a good shoe. It's just there's loads of great shoes out there right now, and the X2 I think isn't the best of the bunch.
So my verdict for the Carbon X2, I think it's a fine shoe. I think you're not going to be disappointed if you're running in it, and it almost delivers like a general shoe. You can use it for slower runs if you want to. It's not particularly well designed for that. It's not that soft, although it is slightly softer than the Carbon X. And it doesn't feel particularly fast either. It just doesn't really fit into any obvious area of my running shoe collection, which makes it stand out. So I don't mind running in it. I kind of enjoy it to an extent, but there's a lot of great shoes out there now, and if you specifically want a fast carbon racer, there's so many good options. If you want a cushioned training shoe, there's brilliant options. If you want a tempo shoe, again, there's great options, especially including the Hoka Rocket, which I would much prefer to go for a tempo shoe, or even a race shoe than this. So yeah, I think if you bought it, you wouldn't be disappointed. You'd be fine with it, but I just think there's better options out there, and it's a very difficult time to release a carbon plate shoe that costs £160 that doesn't really deliver on anything in an exceptional way.
Okay, so my verdict's on the Carbon X2. Now, if you're looking for a shoe that's kind of, one that you can use for your sessions, I don't think that's really what this shoe is about. It's really about going kind of longer distance. That's where it felt most rewarding in terms of what's going on in this shoe. I think, you've got a good amount of space. It felt comfortable. Running felt very natural, kind of going a little bit longer in these shoes. I think that's where you're going to get a benefit most from the X2. So for me, verdict is if you're looking for something for longer runs, something to keep you quick around race pace, this is a shoe potentially worth looking at.
I had perfectly good runs in them. They just weren't really remarkable at any of the paces. They were fun when I clipped up the pace during the intervals, but again, I just don't think these would be my go-to sort of interval shoe. They were quite forgiving over when I was sort of plodding and doing the slower paces too, perhaps a little bit more forgiving than the original Carbon X. But again, I'm not sure that if I'm going for like a slower, longer run, if I'm thinking about like a steady half on a Sunday, then I don't think I would be picking these either. I think there are now better shoes out there. This Hoka Carbon X2, to me, I just feel like it's coming up against a lot more competition. There are way more carbon shoes out there now, and it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything particularly remarkable. It sort of feels like it's sort of melting away into the background, along with a lot of other sort of really cushioned shoes that you might do sort of longer, sort of faster miles in. I don't feel like there's anything particularly noteworthy to write home about. It's a good shoe. It's just a good shoe, good kind of average shoe. I just, I don't know. I wouldn't be picking this first to do any of my miles in. At the time, the X, I did. I went for that. I reached for that when I was going to go for, something over sort of 2 or 3 hours for sure. I'd even look at that for going for an ultra. I definitely wouldn't. This wouldn't be my ultra shoe. 100Ks, those kind of things. I don't think I'd be reaching for the Carbon X2 anymore.
So that's it from all 4 of the run testers on the Hoka Carbon X2 running shoe. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click that little bell. And check out the channel for all the videos we've got on shoes, headphones and running watches that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.